if I'm scrolling through my X feed, I will suddenly see an Apple ad, even though I'm using, the latest iPhone or something,
Exactly.
latest gadget. Why do they keep on investing in when their brand is has reached 100% awareness?
My job is to measure twice for you, to cut once.
A consumer or insights trend you think is overhyped right now?
AI. Overhyped. And this is where Coca-Cola does a phenomenal job. It's almost 140 years brand, and it's as iconic as ever because so many people put in so much work. It's a universally known brand. The second most spoken word in English. The first one is hello, and the second one is Coca-Cola. Because I do so much analytical work, I really, really love reading poetry because it's just the polar opposites of what I do on a day-to-day level. Some famous person said, I don't remember. All frameworks are wrong. Some are more useful than others.
Wow, it's like all animals are equal, but some are more equal than the others.
Shubham, you always have a quote to counterquote my quote.
Hi, this is Shubham Tiwari.
Hi, I'm Akhil.
Today on ShelfLife, we are joined by Jinghuan Liu Tervalon, a consumer insights and omnichannel strategy leader who's worked across some of the most complex growth environments in CPG, from challenger brands like Dollar Shave Club, which is, I love that brand because of their marketing and videos, to global systems like Coca-Cola and Farmer White. Is that the current pronunciation? And
Yes.
Nature Made. Jinghuan sits at the intersection of consumer understanding, behavioral science, and real world commercial execution. Her work spans segmentation, growth strategy, retail analytics, and multicultural consumer insights. That's, my core interest in today's episode across both DTC and traditional retail systems. We are excited to unpack how consumer insights actually become decisions inside modern CPG organizations. So let's get into it. Jinghuan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Shubham. Thank you, Akhil. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Also to add, Jinghuan has worked across two major markets, US and China. So she could tell us stories from both China, how China works, and US. And a lot of people are curious about both these markets. US, more people understand, but China, very few people understand. So if you could talk about those also, it would be great.
Yes, I will try. Yes, I will try. Yes.
Now that you said it, Akhil, I guess this is the first time we are having someone who has insights on the Chinese market. So this is already a very insightful episode for most of our viewers. Jinghuan, I had a very fun note for this interview to begin on, which I'll touch upon later. But let's what the strand that Akhil has opened. Let's speak on that. What is the essential difference between American and Chinese CPG markets?
This is a great question. Two markets are absolutely very, very different, but in a lot of way merging and becoming a bit more similar as well. So in American CPG markets, you're looking at a market that's fairly mature, that's fairly developed. Most of the categories that people are in are developed, and you're looking at product differentiation, right? Your job is to figure out what is a meaningful differentiation of your product, your brand, and what type of consumers you should really go after, because the markets are so saturated, right? You talk about any sort of food and beverage, whether that's soda, water, or snacks, or protein bars, or supplements, you are looking for that point of differentiation. And same for personal care. I've worked at Dollar Shave Club, right? You look at the body soap, shaving, grooming. You're not looking to fix any problems. You're looking to do a better job or a more fun job, right? There's not a whole lot of problems to fix when it comes to shaving. You're looking at, can I offer a more natural, a better shaving experience? You're looking for differentiation. In markets like China and to some extent maybe India as well, we're looking to solve a different sort of challenge. We're looking to change how people behave, how, we're looking for that occasion to market to, right? Because a lot of people are not using the products that you want them to use. In the early days, I've done soap research, right? People are not used to using a liquid soap, right? You're trying to sell them a liquid soap that's possibly better, more hygienic, and you're trying to identify that usage occasion. I've tried to sell tea to Chinese consumers, bottled tea, where there's this very steeped tradition of drinking tea in China. And how would you sell that? You figure out the occasion. A lot of times that occasion is commute, right? It's your morning commute hour or your afternoon commute back home. So you're solving two different problems. One, in a very mature market like the US market, you're trying to solve product differentiation. And in a market like China, you're trying to grow your penetration because the category doesn't have wide adoption yet. And you're trying to figure out how can we tie it to people's existing habit and maybe slightly modify it so they can see a way of incorporating this product, this brand, into their day-to-day life. So you're kind of solving two different problems.
This is very interesting, insightful.
Yeah, Akhil is a very, a huge fan of China. He thinks, China is replicated as a, economy and as well as a, the ecosystem that they provide to businesses.
Yeah.
So, so can you give us, an answer when somebody from outside asks you what you do in simplest non-jargon answer? What do you tell your son what you do?
I think he'll understand. I think the question would be like, if you were to explain to your mom, right? I tell people I measure twice so you can cut once. We all know, like, when you make decisions, when you try to create something beautiful, you want to make sure you measure several times. You measure twice so you can cut only once. So my job is to measure twice for you, so you cut once. Fundamentally, we're providing a lot of data and insights so our counterparts in marketing make the right decisions, or our counterpart in strategic planning, or counterpart in strategy, mergers and acquisition, whatever, the end users of our insights are, they have the right tools, right data, right knowledge to make the right decision. And when I talk about right decision, it's not just do we do it or not. A lot of times we're really refining the message around the edges and making sure we are accurate as possible, and we put out the right messaging and product and combination, all that packaged together. And it's really like a daily practice.
Can you give a specific example about it? Can you quantify it with an example in your day-to-day life you would have from your day-to-day life?
Yeah. So there's a lot that goes into day-to-day life, and because the team is usually structured as analytics part is one, or business intelligence, and then you have the consumer insights part, and you might have some other team members that takes charge of CRM and UX research. So my role often is about bringing all these different data points together. The example I'll give you is at Dollar Shave Club, and with previous roles, I've always had a monthly insights recap or a quarterly brand health deep dive, where we bring all the existing research together to say, this is what we've done really well in this past quarter, and going forward, this is how we can fine tune. And we've always had this framework of start, stop, and continue, right? This is what we did really, really well in this past quarter. Let's continue to do that. And this is an opportunity we see. Let's start doing this. And then X, Y, and Z didn't go as well. This is what we can stop doing. And usually it brings competitive performance data, right? How the market is performing, what are some of the new and emerging competitors we should watch out for, what they're doing. And then we will always look at like consumer sentiment, all these macroeconomic factors that would impact your category and your brand. And then also look at the brand's performance, right? How are we doing in terms of revenue? How are we doing in terms of share? And how are we doing at different retail partners, right? With a Walmart, with a Target, or different customers. Not only that, you also look at your brand power, right? How's awareness? How is consideration? How's your conversion rate? How many people are your brand ambassadors? And then understand what are some of the opportunities. If we run a campaign this past quarter, how did it do? What is it? How do we measure its ROI? And understanding, did this tactic work? Did it reach the right consumers? And then did we overreach them? Did we hit them like too many times, right? You're always fine-tuning on these little edges. Most of the time you have the right messaging. Most of the time it's about reaching the audience in the right places at the right frequency. So all these nuances add together. It's always like, I think of, running a brand, it's a complex job. And all these little elements, internal and external, needs to go right for a brand to be successful. And your competitors are always on your heels. Your consumers are always shifting. Your external environment is always shifting. Earlier last year, we had a whole, there weren't any SNAP benefits. So consumers were tightening their belts. There's always private label emerging. There's new brands emerging. There's very little you can do when it comes to external factors. And how do you respond really well? How do you anticipate and respond really well? That's your mandate. So I'm sorry, I give you a very, very long answer, but it's quite a bit of work to bring all that data together and really commercialize all that data. My previous CEO at Dollar Shave Club, Larry Botner, he has always given me the best coaching. Always make sure you activate your insights and commercialize your insights, and that's what we do on a day-to-day level.
That's interesting. So, Jinghuan, you have worked inside both massive global organization and fast challenger environments. What's one experience early in your career that permanently changed how you think about consumer insights?
That's a great question. It's more than just one moment. I think it's throughout the years, obviously. I think as we learn, people in insights always say, right, like consumers don't make rational decisions. And we learned that early on. We try to not only capture their stated attitudinal data, but also their behavioral data. People will say, I really want health, but they're buying very indulgent food, right? There's always a mismatch. What I've learned over the years is that our marketing counterparts are similar too. Our profession, we're trained to listen to data, present the right data, and also, expect our counterparts to take that data and say, okay, this is what we're gonna do. And it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen very often. And, you run into a similar situation that you have to take that into consideration and say, my counterparts might not always make rational decisions, just like consumers. How do I take this and not use it as a weapon, but use it as some sort of fuel and to fuel the right decisions? So my fundamental learning is that we're in a business of influencing and persuasion. And that covers a lot more than data and insights. That comes with building trust and building relationship and fundamentally understanding what drives a human to make specific decisions and how we can be the best partners to that person in the driver's seat.
Wonderful. So, Jingwan, are you the most rational person in the room when
I,
the
I I would love to think so, but I'm as flawed as everyone else. And
yeah, it's
also
been
being the most rational is not, is also not the way, right? You have the fictional character Spock, right? It doesn't
oh
mean
yeah,
that it's always the right thing to do. Yeah.
yeah, we all know Spock.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, Jingwan, speaking about you, across your career, you've seen very different consumer tensions, value
Mm-hmm.
versus aspiration, convenience versus health. As you just said, people are irrational. Uh, Habits versus experimentation. So, which tension do you think brands consistently misunderstand today?
I think brands tend to sway really on one side of the spectrum. And I think we can get better at navigating the vast gray. Um, and I'll give you examples. I think the better brands are at navigating a gray, the better a brand will thrive. Um, and I'll give you an example. I think Nature Made is, I mean, this is from my experience working there years ago, but I think it's a really good brand navigating that gray. So the vitamins and supplements category is a very commoditized category, like many, many categories you think about, you know, baby wipes or most CPG categories, spices, bread, very commoditized, chocolate. Um, NatureMade does a good job actually driving brand awareness and building trust with consumers, and still is the number one in terms of broadline vitamins in share, because it navigates that grade very well. So, you know, people who take vitamins and supplements naturally are health conscious, but what I see with smaller brands, insurgent brands, what they do is they go extremely high on one spectrum, and that really limits their opportunity to grow. They will give you the best vitamin, the best combination you can think of, the highest quality, the highest purity. But then they ended up chasing a very, very small consumer niche. I'll give you brands like Athletic Green, lovely brand, but it's so much about aspirational targets. It's one green smoothie, and if it takes care of everything, it's for the most dedicated athletes. But it ended up chasing such a niche. I mean, it's probably fine. That's probably their growth path. But when a brand is so much into that aspirational target, it pigeonholes itself to the target, and it does limit growth, and the pricing is very high. It's very, very high. Like, I think I make a good living. I think Athletic Green is very expensive. So I think the brands are, once you're in certain space, you have to think about, how do I create this mass appeal? You're not lowering your offerings, but you're trying to appeal to as many people as you can. Yogurt might be another uh, a category I can give you. A lot of people talk about, the yogurt culture and how good it is for you, but it also, like, how many grams of protein. But when you look at the best-selling yogurts, are they're not the highest in protein, they're not the lowest in sugar. It's the combination of all these different factors. Once you chase a consumer that is very, very niche, it gets hard to grow. It gets hard for you to break out that mode. A lot of people wants to chase this super health conscious, always making the right decisions. But this is maybe 5% of the population. It's not a whole lot of them. And then at the other end of the spectrum is this ultra indulgent too. Fast food is an example. A lot of times you have to make sure you're not always talking about that either. Sometimes you have to have some sort of mixed messaging saying, hey, it's actually also really, really good for you. One good example I can give you is Panda Express, right? They're known for their orange chicken, and it's very indulgent. But they also talk about, how many grams of protein you get per dollar because they're such good value. And they also talk about health hacks. So I think that's really well balanced messaging.
I love Panda Express orange chicken.
We all do. We all do. We all do.
Yeah. Okay. So, Jingwa, when you start a week or project, what's the first signal you personally look for to understand whether a brand or category is healthy or drifting?
Yeah, I look at penetration and I look at share. Yeah, those are two metrics I really care about. Penetration, just overall category penetration, is very important for for you to look at in terms of understanding brand health. So you're trying to understand, am I swimming upstream? And the example I'll give you is personal grooming. In a lot of personal grooming categories, category penetration is actually declining. In the US, men are shaving less frequently. They're making their blades last longer. They're not buying razors as often as they used to. So there's a slow trickle down of category penetration. So you are, for all the brands, right, you are swimming upstream in a category like this. And you do want to operate in a category that's growing. So it's a bit easier, right? You're not fighting against a trend that's just going down. You're going to hopefully capture your fair share of that category's growth. So that's one, category penetration. The other one I really look at is share. Even regardless of how the category is performing, you still want to operate in, you want to outplay the category. You want to be better than your competitors. So that's another huge indicator, is just share.
Got it. And with penetration, you mean that overall how the category is growing, whether it's declining or it's increasing?
Yes, but not just from a dollar perspective, because all the brands can raise their prices. And then what you see is, yeah, if you just look at pure dollar, you're looking at a 1 to 2% category growth. But you want to look at how many households are actually buying this category, right? How many households are buying this, razors or body soap or shampoo? A lot of these personal care categories, penetration has been on a steady decline. Yeah, people are
So it's
washing their
volume.
hair less. Yeah.
So it's like volume.
Yes.
Got it.
Got it. And Jinghuan, how do you
Yeah.
get this household data?
Panel from household panel. Yeah, I've
Got it.
worked with both Nielsen's panel and also Numerator panel. They have great data.
Got it. Jivan, can you walk us through how you approach segmentation? How do you move from abstract segment to something that actually shapes product, messaging, channel, and decisions, or channel
Yeah,
decisions?
yeah. Segmentation is such a useful tool, and it's especially useful when you're trying to chase a very specific group of consumers. So I've done several segmentations. I think the study itself is, I don't want to say easy, but there are established ways of doing it, right? You do a driver analysis, you do a cluster exercise, and then you try to see if the different segments make sense, if they're pulled apart as far as possible, and then you align on one segment or two segments. I think the process from a technical perspective has been perfected over the decades. I think the challenge always is, can your counterparts in the marketing team, sales team, really embrace the segment and then activate on it? So once the study is done, that's actually when the real work begins, is socializing that segments and activating on the segments. So I usually, what my team and I would do is trying to really paint a picture of who the segments are and possibly recruit a few people from the segment and do some deep dive, do some qualitative deep dive. This is their day-to-day behavior. This is how they shop our category. This is how they see our brand. This is how our brand can do a better job reaching out to these consumers. It's really all about the activation. And this might be, I don't want to give out too much proprietary data, but for different brands, you will always have different types of consumers, right? You want, maybe it's a group of fun-loving people who want to have fun with their shaving. Maybe it's vitamin takers, they really want to make sure what they're taking is working for them. Their biggest challenge is building trust with a brand, with a category. So you find these group of people, and then you truly identify what drives them, what's the most important for them to buy your category and buy your brand, and really stick to that messaging. I hope that's not too long of an answer.
No, that's an insightful answer.
Yeah, lot to unpack. Jingwan, again, you've worked with both D2C heavy and retail led businesses. How does the
Yeah.
meaning of consumer insights change once retail reality enters the picture?
Yeah, that's a great question, and tie it to back to our previous conversation on segmentation, right? When a retailer enters the picture, let's just say it's a Walmart, they will not care about your segmentation because it's yours. They care about their shoppers, right? So you have to be able to translate all that consumer insights to shopper related insights. That's why in a lot of organizations, you do have a consumer insights team, and then you have a shopper insights team. That shopper insights team is to make sure you're basically going to tell your retailer these questions. By carrying my brand in your store, you're going to attract a specific shopper that you want, whether that's Gen Z, whether that's millennial parents, or if the brand doesn't have the power to pull new people in, you're going to try to tell a story of this is how we're going to increase your basket size, right? By carrying X, Y, and Z of my products, your basket size is going to increase from $50 to $55. You're always trying to frame that in terms of the benefit to the retailer, right? By carrying my product, this is what it's going to do for your shoppers. This is how you're ultimately going to offer better shopping experience to your shoppers. Yeah. So the shopper insights part can get complex and get extremely tactical, but those are usually the stories that we tell.
So, Jingwan, in marketing insights or CPG generally, now it's a new world we are entering after Gen AI. And where do you see Gen AI coming into marketing analytics insights? I think that's the first function that can use Gen AI than any other function of CPG. But Gen AI is sweeping across, like tech is one of the sector, but it's sweeping across sectors. Where do you see Gen AI being deployed in marketing analytics or in CPG brands overall? So, what's your view around it?
I think it will be very helpful. I think we need to master the tool. Um, and my team and I have done a few things. One is to help us process some data. An example I'll give you is if we've done focus groups and we have transcripts, tens of maybe like thousands of pages of transcripts, we can feed it to ChatGPT and then ask it to summarize it. And also a lot of the open ends in a questionnaire, right? If you import it, it can help you analyze it and give you key points. And then if you say, hey, pull out verbatims that say, I really love X, Y, and Z, or I really hate X, Y, and Z, it can do that for you, and it's very, very quick. So it's super useful. The other thing that we've experimented with on is synthetic data. So there are companies that could run quant surveys based on synthetic data for straightforward concept testing, where they don't use human responses, they just use Gen AI data. The results have been mixed. In order to be safe, right, we've always run studies side by side. This is sample size of 200 of human responses, and this is sample size of 200 machine responses, and look at it side by side. I do have to say, like, from summarizing, synthesizing, and even generating human-like responses is very useful, but it loses the edge sometimes. It loses some sharpness. Sometimes it can become fairly generic summaries. So you can't just let Gen AI do all the work for you. You really have to be a steward. You have to make sure it's well sourced. It doesn't make any mistakes. You have to check twice. But it's useful. It could save you time. It could give you different ideas about how to solve certain problems. The other thing my friends have talked about, which I haven't experimented on, is to help with specific math modeling. So my friend used to work in investment banking. He actually have a paid ChatGPT model where he does ask ChatGPT to create math models. That's a world that I don't really understand, but per my friend, it works well. But again, you have to really, really check and understand how that data is structured. Yeah.
Right. And this is a use case you mentioned about marketing analytics, insights, this part. Where other areas people are using Gen AI, like maybe in supply chain, maybe in marketing, or in sales.
Yeah. Yeah.
How is
I
it being
can't.
used today in CPG brands?
Yeah, I can't speak with to supply chain. I've seen it used in marketing often in terms of replacing real human models, right? If it's, I don't know, making it up, like hand cream, you don't need a hand model. You could just ask an AI to create a pair of perfect looking hands for you. Um, Pet food. Pet is another category that's pretty disrupted, and a lot of times, you can imagine how hard it is to photo shoot with pets, and they've created AI cats and dogs to showcase pet food. So I think it's that's a very established usage occasion for Gen AI in terms of marketing. Yeah.
Then, because you mentioned pets, it's difficult to photo shoot them. Same might be for kids and
Yeah, for
similar
kids.
kind of
Yeah.
category.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alfred Hitchcock had a saying, when he was active as a filmmaker, that never shoot with animals because you cannot control them.
Right, right.
I don't know what would he
I
say
can
now
imagine.
because AI is here and he would have, had a, ball of a
Yeah,
time with the technology. Um,
yeah,
I'm glad you touched upon human-centered research a bit. You've led, a lot of consumer research, and so please tell us, what does human-centered research actually look like when timelines are tight and stakeholders want answers fast?
yeah. It's hard. It still is very hard. I think it looks like, you know, doing a really good job, not only designing the study with your consumers in mind, but also with your stakeholders in mind. I love it. I think it's really infusing empathy in the day-to-day work that you do, not only just with your consumers, but also with your stakeholders, understanding they're human as well, understanding what's the pressing issue when it comes to timeline. And the better you can work with them and bring empathy in your everyday work, the more effective you are. Maybe the timeline is pressed because of film filming timeline, or I have a conference coming in, I have to present, right? Stuff like that. The more you can understand their pain points, the better you can work together. I think the human aspect goes beyond consumers, but also your stakeholders.
Right. Jingwon, you talked, a lot about, like data and, tight timelines and all. What does this time period, I mean, we are speaking right now on
Mm-hmm.
January 8th, 2026. What does this time period look like for a person of your profile? What are they doing? How much data they're crunching for the annual planning? Please give us an insight.
Yeah. So it depends on the size of the team and how it's structured. I think at any given time, one person on my team would have 3 to 4 projects. And, in the past, a concept testing could take 6 weeks, right? Now you can have an overnight thing, and from study setup to the report delivery, it can be done within 1 to 2 weeks. It definitely is a lot faster because of technology, because of different tools, because of people can take surveys on mobile. You don't have to force them to sit down on a laptop and dedicate 20 minutes. There are lots of very convenient things to cut timeline short. I do have to caution that just because we face timeline pressure doesn't mean that we do everything to meet that timeline and sacrifice quality. A lot of times research, you always can do scrappy research, but the higher the risk, the more rigor you have to put into it, and that comes with slowing down. And a lot of times slowing down is not just, do I have the right study, do I have the right methodology, do I have the right sample size. A lot of times the slowing down means, are we asking the right question, are we looking at the right places, right? Like Einstein said, I'm paraphrasing, if I have an hour of solving a problem, trying to solve a problem, I will spend 50 minutes defining the right questions. I think the higher the business risk, the more we need to make sure, are we asking the right business questions?
Right. I think I have another quote, I guess, from Ralph Waldo Emerson. He, wrote a letter to someone and apologized at the end of it, like, I did not have enough time to write a shorter letter to you. So,
That's
so
right.
yeah, the slowing
That's right.
down is
Synthesis.
important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I was saying, like, it's not only right now, yes, there's definitely workload, how many projects at any given time some person is managing, but also the sheer volume of data, right? Your data can come from so many different places. You have your retail sales data, velocity data, distribution, all that, right? You can get down to the SKU level. So the vast amount of quantity, it's also about like how can you bring all that data together and really synthesize the story, right? You have your transaction data, and then on top of that you have your panel data, right? Telling you this is your household behavior, and then you have all the other studies. You have Amazon data. Stackline is a great resource. You have CRM data. You have all the user experience data. A lot of times it is dealing with that vast amount of data just coming at you like a fire hose. How do you simplify it and make sense
Yeah.
and tell one clear, cohesive story?
Yeah. It's, the picture that it all, it's painting in my head is like CPG is like a huge sea of data, and can you surf on the
Mm-hmm.
high tide? So,
Yeah, I love that.
yeah.
Love that.
Okay, changing little bit. So you have worked across multinational companies and in different countries. What do global brands often miss when they try to localize insights?
Yeah. It's a good question. Um, it, I think when it comes to localizing insights, I'll give you the example of China. I think yes, America is very vast and diverse. You know, a consumer in Minneapolis is going to behave differently from a consumer in Chicago and Los Angeles. I think it's very challenging because you do want one unified story without sacrificing the nuances. If you don't have a unified story, it's hard to act on a brand level. But if you don't capture the nuances, you can't activate on the local level. So I think it really depends on what you're trying to do, right? Are you trying to run a national campaign where it's more or less okay to have a unified theme? Or are you having some sort of market specific activation? I think it depends on what you're trying to do. Like market specific activation, such as promotion, that could be highly market specific. But if you're just running one brand level campaign, I think, a national level, a higher level story, that would work. So it depends. I do think regionalization, localization needs to be taken a little bit more seriously. Just like shopper insights, right? A lot of times what works at a Walmart is not going to work at a Target. And you have to make sure you speak your retailer's language, your partner's language. It's the same idea.
Wonderful. I'm loving, the words that you're using, like stories and, storytelling, of course. Oh, do you have, some kind of narrative, let's say models that you use to build these stories at, brand level, national level, local level?
Yeah. There are certain frameworks that I do stick to. A SWOT analysis is very helpful. Your strength, your weakness, your threat, opportunities. That's one thing. And the start, stop, and go is another framework I use often. And then the most commonly used story narrative is setting up the challenge, right? What is the problem we're trying to solve? Defining the problem. Okay, here's what it is. What is our reality? Do a situation assessment. And then now what, right? You set up the what and so what and now what, right? What is your challenge? And now what? And then the so what is, this is what it means, your implications. And then now what is, okay, what do we do now? What's the 1, 2, 3? What's the immediate solution and what's the long-term solution? That's another framework that I use very often. And like my mentor said, or some famous person said, I don't remember, all frameworks are wrong. Some are more useful than others.
Wow, it's like all animals are equal, but some are more equal than the others. George Orwell.
Shubham, you always have a quote to counterquote my quote.
I'll also move my camera to show you that I'm sitting in my, library, which is full of books. I can't show the full.
Love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Shom has a big bookshelf completely covered with books, and he's reading all the
Yeah,
time.
Why do you
love
think
that.
I do this podcast? To just, flaunt my literary knowledge.
Love that.
Okay, so where do you feel most insight constraint today? Early intent, in-store behavior, cross-channel attribution, or competitive context?
I think marketing attribution is probably the one that's still lacking, right? And that's really hard to measure. When you have a campaign, how do you attribute your final purchase, your final dollar spend to your awareness building campaign versus your consideration versus your lower funnel, sales conversion tactics, right? Where that attribution comes from. We all have heard of the last touch bias, right? Where the last touch points have the most weight And that's after setting it up previously, after you've seen all the other touch points. And that's still a very, very strong bias. And I don't think we've perfected that model yet. So the overall marketing attribution model, I think that's still where insights are most lacking. And it's also really hard because humans are complex, right? You might have seen something on a billboard and you don't remember it. And then next thing you see it on an Instagram and you bought it, and then your marketing attribution will say, well, it's the Instagram ad that worked. Well, it might not be that, right? You've seen it because you've seen it on a billboard, possibly at a friend's house too, and it plants a little seed in your head, and then once you see it on Instagram, you're like, oh yeah, I remember kind of seeing this before. There's a little trust built already, and then you buy based on the Instagram ad, or you buy it on a different occasion in store. You saw it at the Target at checkout, it was having a 25% off sale. You attribute it to the final in-store activation where you've been exposed previously. So that path is really, really hard to track, and it's very hard to define. So I think that's still lacking.
Marketing attribution has been a problem that has existed from decades. It has been unsolved. It seems like it is unsolved today, and each of these platform, like major ed tech platform, have their own version of telling, hey, how much ROI or ROAS you got from running ads on our platform. Google might show a different number, Meta would show a different number.
Exactly.
What do you use? What do you trust most? What's your nearest approximation which you have used?
I like I said, this is the data I always take with a grain of salt. It's never perfect, and I tend to like, A/B testing better. Having a control versus a lift group, trying to understand if isolating specific tactics, that gives me a little bit more confidence. But I'm also such a huge believer of all the upper funnel marketing tactics, right? How do you really drive awareness? How do you really drive consideration? That work is often undervalued, and people tend to overvalue the very immediate sales-driven tactics. I don't have the best tool to say this is the measurement tool. I look at all the different components. I look at A/B testing to say these are the tactics that work, and I also make sure we give proper credit to upper funnel tactics, like really driving our awareness and consideration. People always talk about, Shubham, you probably have this book, Byron Sharp's How Brands Grow, right? I bet you have it.
I have it. I can say it also. Now that I give the answer.
Right. So you always think about both physical and mental availability. And all that mental availability, that little seeds that you plant in people's head, that will never go away. And you can't stop doing that work, even though sometimes it's really hard to measure the impact. And this is where Coca-Cola does a phenomenal job. It's almost 140 years a brand, and it's as iconic as ever because so many people put in so much work. I mean, it's a universally known brand. The awareness is like 100%, I'm sure. It's the second most spoken word in English. The first one is hello, and the second one is Coca-Cola. And still, there are teams of extremely dedicated, talented people to still drive that awareness and consideration and brand differentiation. And at Coke, we used to call that polish the trademark. And so many people still do that. So I can't emphasize enough the value of building your brand.
After how many times a customer sees or an audience sees the ad, they start building a recall for it. Like there would be a number after which the return would start declining. So what is that optimal number when a
It's
customer should
brand
see it?
dependent. It really is brand dependent. Yeah, I've seen all kinds of numbers. I've seen 2.4. I've seen 3, 4. It's brand dependent. It's dependent on how familiar consumers already are with your brand. And the more that people are familiar with your brand, you hit them twice, three times at most. They'll get it. But if it's a brand that's new, emerging, that's still niche, you gotta hit them a few more times. Yeah.
Right. Jingwen, one, question that is, of personal interest to me is you mentioned Coca-Cola, brands like Apple, which have like 100% awareness, right? Why do
Yeah.
these brands still spend so much money on ads? Like, if I'm scrolling through my X feed, I will suddenly see an Apple ad, even though I'm using, the latest iPhone or something, latest
Exactly.
gadget. Why do they, keep on investing in when their
Mm-hmm.
brand is like has reached 100% awareness?
Yeah, that's your mental availability, right? You want to have a strong recall. This is where your unaided awareness comes in, right? Not just your awareness. When you think a specific category, you think that. When you think outdoors, you think Patagonia. When you think smartphones, you think Apple, right? You're investing so that people see you when when they're consider a specific category, a specific problem to solve, they think about your product and your brand first. And everything else comes second. You're investing in that. When people think about refreshing beverages, they think Coca-Cola first, right? That is
Yep.
your unaided awareness and your consideration. And
Interesting.
the moment you stop doing it, your competitor comes in.
Okay, so you're just like not ceding the space in a way that I'll be
Yeah,
there for not others to
yeah.
enter.
And
Got it.
and not ceding the space, but also fine tuning your messaging because how people view your category keeps on shifting too, right? Smartphone is good, is fun, but smartphone is also really bad. You have to be able to fine tune your messages too. It cannot be the same throughout. Yeah. I mean, Coca-Cola is an example, right? It used to be 5 cents a can, and the message could be whatever you're drinking is the same as whatever the king is drinking. It's an idea of democratization of a product. That message worked years ago. It's not working now. Now it's about portion control. It's about allowable indulgence, right? You don't have to drink a 12-ounce soda. You can drink an 8-ounce soda, right? The message has changed.
How do these insights actually move inside an organizations you have worked with? Is it dashboards, narrative, workshops, informal conversations that truly drive these alignments? How do you
Yeah, it's
align
all
people inside the organizations?
it's all above, all of the above. So as I think about how to make people's behavior change, right? As I was speaking earlier, ultimately insights we're in the position to influence and persuade. A framework that we've used often is BMAT, behavioral equals motivation, ability, trigger. You always want to drive up people's motivation to do certain things. You always want to help them, right? Increase their ability to do certain things, how accessible it is. And then you always want to deploy a trigger. Same for socializing your insights, right? How do you drive their motivation, make them actually understand data is your best weapon? And how do you, make sure it's really accessible? That's where dashboards come in, right? You can just log in, click on this link, and all your share is there, all your market performance is there, all your competitors' performance is there. You make it as easy to access as possible. But sometimes you need a trigger. That's where all the informal conversations begin, right? You're walking into a conference room, you're giving your brand manager a subtle uh, nudge or, oh, remember this and that, right? That's you deploying a trigger. I think it comes, like I said, it's a discipline that requires you to be both a task manager, right, to make sure all the stuff is done, but also to be a diplomat,
Nice.
fighting the right
So,
battle,
does the
building the right
inside person
alliance.
has to be a diplomat?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to build your alliance. You have to pick the right battle to fight, at some point you understand there are certain battles that's not worth fighting. And
Wonderful.
a lot of times that you decide, oh, this we don't need to study, or this we could do a qual. Or sometimes people, for those who really do not believe in qualitative research, you don't do qualitative research and you pivot to quant.
Interesting. So there is a lot of judgment, a lot of qualitative, intuitive, decision making is going there.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, yeah.
Jingwon, if you could get one unified view of the business, consumer, retail, competition, and execution, what's the first question you'd want it to answer? I asked this question because we at Clayface, spend a lot of time thinking about how brands connect fragmented signals into one decision-ready story. So,
Hmm.
what would be that first question that would ask such a system?
Yeah, I think I would just look at their performance, and look at how their performance is matching with their go-to-market strategy. If your go-to-market strategy is to win in retail and to grow penetration, I want to look at your performance data and see if you're doing that, and if your competitors are doing a better job than you at that. So I think actual performance data is where I would look at. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you're trying to sell products. You want people to buy your product. That should be your strongest signal. I if you know I love all the upper funnel awareness stuff. I do think demand generation is critical for brand survival.
Got it. So,
Yeah.
as someone who studies various categories deeply, what's a signal that tells you a category is about to change before the numbers actually start telling the same story?
Yeah, I think challenger brands. I really look at challenger brands to see what fun things are doing, what new unconventional trends are starting in specific category. That's why I think like trade shows are important. As marketers, you got to get yourself out there, not just to do retail visits, you know, to make sure the shelves are stocked. I Yes, absolutely do that, and it's critical. But you make sure you hit the trade shows because that's where the latest brands are going. That's where your emerging competitors are coming from. Yeah. Go to trade shows, see what small brands are out there, what they're doing, and how many share they're grabbing. And, understand what a different game they might be playing. There might be a social first brand and trying to get into retail. And guess what? The first retailer they're getting in was Target or Costco. That's a very different playbook than the conventional CPG playbook. Because
Wonderful.
the conventional way is you nurture all your big customers before you finally can talk with Costco, right? They usually take national top two or top three brands to carry, but then they do experiment with smaller brands, regional brands, especially in the food category, and that's how a lot of the smaller brands can get in. But you have to make sure you have a very robust supply chain. So to shorten my answer, I would say emerging brands, trends, and also trade shows are where I look for these signals.
Right. Jingon, can you tell us some of the trade shows that you'll be attending this year or you have been attending or must attend events?
Yeah, so there's the Winter Fancy Fair. That's one. Actually, next Monday in San Diego. That's one I'm going to.
All right.
Expo West is one in the natural space. It's incredible. It's huge. It's evolved a lot. In food and beverage, the National Restaurant Association always has a great national conference. There's a lot more, but those are the big ones.
Got it. Let me use the buzzword of our times, AI. Now, looking across CPG more broadly, bird's eye view. What's the real scenario of AI adoption today inside consumer insights and analytics teams? And what do people underestimate about why some teams, embrace AI while others actively resist it?
Uh, I'll answer it in two parts. One is adoption, right? What's the real adoption? I think it's low. I think different organizations have different views on how to use AI. Um, and we don't know how closed loop AI is. So whatever you feed into it, it will be part of the output. So there are things you cannot feed into it. Product formula is one, right? There are things that you absolutely do not want it to feed into. That perhaps explains why people are hesitant to use it. Um, but I do think it's a very, very useful tool that people need to understand. I mean, you don't have to use it for work purposes. You can simply use it for personal purposes, right? A lot of people use it for trip planning. You know, I have 3 days in Italy. What should I do, right? It will give you a fairly good itinerary. Um, I think it's really about AI fluency that we want to see, comfort and fluency. And it's very much occasion dependent. It depends on what you're trying to do. You want to master a tool without giving out trade secrets.
Yeah, Akhil is, by the way, a master at itineraries. He creates itineraries like, I mean, he has like itineraries of all the countries.
That was pre AI era. Now I think my skill, that skill have just been useless skill.
I don't think so. Next I will get you help next global trip.
Absolutely, I would love to. Uh, so, where do you think AI is genuinely helping insights team, and where do you think it's falling short today, or is it just not helping? Is it just not there?
I think what it's helping is taking some grunt work away. That's very helpful, right? Thinking about specific work like summarizing and helping with data tabulation, that's helping. Um, what is not helping is socializing your insights. That's human work, right? You can't not host a workshop. You can't not, for a big study like segmentation, you can't just hold one meeting and call it a day. It really is day-to-day work, and you need to talk about it several times with different people, with your leadership team, with your marketing team, with your sales team, and customize your message too, right? So AI can't do that for you. A lot of the hand holding, influencing, persuasion work, AI obviously cannot do that for you. But can AI make your life easier? Yeah. Can AI help you spend less time scheduling conferences? Absolutely. Yeah. It's not going to take it away. I think AI makes your workload perhaps a little bit more manageable, but then you're going to focus on other human work.
Wonderful.
Right.
Jingwan, we are, at the fag end of the third act of this interview. So we try to ask fun questions. Devil Wears Prada 2 is about to come this year. So please tell us, what does your teammates say about you? How do they, summarize you in one word?
Demanding but fair.
Good one.
Yeah, I think demanding but fair. I try to be a servant leader. Um, the best advice I got from my former boss and mentor, Robin Torres, was make sure you first invest in your relationship with them before you ask anything of them. Always give first, and that's something that I really try to live by.
Wonderful, such wonderful advice. I will certainly use, measure twice to cut once in the next interview that we are going to do. I will steal it from you. Wonderful lines.
I'm glad it's worth stealing.
Jingwan, please give us a book recommendation. Just before we started recording this, we were talking about running and how Murakami writes about running. What do you think when you're running? Tell us what goes inside your head.
Oh wow, it goes to all kinds of different directions, which is why I really value my running time. It's my self-care time. It can go to this is what want my life to be in 10 years. It could go to this is my to-do list for today. It could go to absolutely nowhere. Like sometimes I finish a run, I was like, oh, that just happened. I have no idea what I was thinking. You just let your mind wander. Yeah,
Well, I
that's the
think
beauty of
that's
running.
yeah, you have to let your mind wander. That's the, I guess, formula. But give us a book
Yeah.
recommendation, your all time, it can be your all time favorite or what you're reading right now, anything.
Book or movie or TV show?
Yeah, anything that other than walk.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, this is a hard one. If it's just one.
You can give
I
multiple.
um I actually, because I do so much analytical work, I really, really love reading poetry because it's just the polar opposites of what I do
Wow.
on a day-to-day level. Um, and the book I will give you is by one of my favorite writers and poets. His name is Ocean Vuong, and it's called Time is a Mother.
Wow. That's
Um, it's
profound.
a it's a small book. It's a lot about loss and grief, especially his experience losing his mother. Um, and he recently has a fiction that came out. It's called Emperor of Gladness. But his poetry books are where I got introduced to him as a writer, and I really love reading it. Yeah. In my
Wonderful.
spare time, like I really try to nurture the creative side, and that's why I read a lot of poetry. I can't write poems, but I really always appreciate good poems. And my some of my other poets include Andrea Gibson. Um, they recently passed away, and there's a documentary about their life. It's called "Come See Me in the Good Light." It's very, very moving. Make sure you watch it with a box of Kleenex. Um, the other poet that I really love is Joy Harjo. So I read poems.
Wonderful. I mean, this is such a beautiful note to end this interview. I'll certainly get all these books. That's for sure.
I have some more questions to ask. What's one city recommendation you would give us where we should visit?
Oh, Pasadena. It's part of, I mean, it's in greater LA area, but
Yeah.
Pasadena is a beautiful city to visit.
Yeah, I don't know how it has been. I went to LA, I went to USC for college. I don't know after LA fire how it has been, and the Pasadena fires were devastating.
And you did not visit
Yes.
Pasadena?
Hmm?
You did not visit Pasadena while you
No,
were
no, I've
in.
been there long back, but now after LA fires, I don't know what's the scene.
Yeah. So funny you mentioned that because our house was burned in the LA fire,
Oh,
in the Eden
Oh,
fire.
sorry to
Yesterday
hear
was
that.
the 1 year anniversary of that. Yeah, so we
oh,
went to
I'm s-
a anniversary event in Altadena. We used to live in Altadena.
Sorry
I'm
to hear
Yeah,
sorry
that.
to hear that.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Jingwan. This was really insightful, and personally, I really loved all the quotes and mentors that name dropped. That's
Yes.
such a great way to weave a narrative thread, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure our audience will find this really insightful. So thank you for your time. You've been very gracious. Any words from you two, both Jingwan and Akhil?
Yeah, Shubham, you want to do a rapid fire? Quick rapid fire?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. So, Jingwan, one brand that you have seen recently that made you think they really get their consumer.
One brand that make me think they really get their consumer. It's not a new brand. I would say Ollie. The vitamins and supplements gummies. Their innovation has been very strong. They have good sleep gummies. They have kids chillax.
Nice.
They do get their consumers.
We
It's
had
a
Ollie.
Unilever brand.
We had Ollie on our podcast before, so this
Ah,
that episode came like a couple of episodes back. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. They're fairly established now, but they've been growing very well, and I love their packaging. I love everything that you do. It's very fun and playful.
Yeah. your most underrated skill as an insights manager, insights leader?
I think project management and relationship building.
Got it. A consumer or insights trend you think is overhyped right now?
AI. Overhyped.
Akhil, want to say
This podcast is all about AI in CPG.
It's overhyped. It's necessary. It's critical to master. Is it overhyped? Yes. I think
Perfect.
the human work is still needed.
Yes.
absolutely. We have to
I
read
think it's
poems
both.
at the end of the day. Even if AI takes over the world, we need poets.
Yeah, yeah. We need people.
Done with the rapid fire, Akhil?
Yes.
Okay, guys, this has been fun. Jingwan, again, I mean, I can't thank you enough. This was really useful. And thanks to our audience for sticking with us. You can let us know in the comment box. You can reach out to Jingwan. We'll post her, we'll paste her LinkedIn profiles link in the description. And yeah, see you in the next episode. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shabam. Thank you, Akhil. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jingwan. It was great pleasure talking to you.